Hi, I'm Grant. From as long as I can remember, I've loved video games. Some of my earliest memories are of me sitting in front of a CRT with a SNES controller in hand. While a lot has changed in my life over the years, one thing remains, and that is my love for games. From learning to play in Super Mario All-Stars, to my first experience of indie games on the Net Euros discs, from finally completing San Andreas' hardest missions, to playing the original Black Ops with my best mate, getting the platinum in Terraria and too many other games, finding the freedom in Steam and PC gaming, and experiencing the golden age of indie games we're currently in all the changes in the gaming industry and my own life, the most recent development has been the most exciting, turning a passion for playing games into a passion for making them. I say it like it happened overnight, but nothing in life is ever that simple. It started in my teenage years. Back in 2015, I was in a dark place. Homebound and barely leaving my room due to illness, I, like anyone, needed something to do, a purpose. I didn't know about game engines back then, but I knew games were made with code. So I googled what coding language games were made with and decided to start learning C++. Shout out to learncplus.com, an amazing free resource that taught me almost everything I know about coding. Using a study laptop that could just barely run Morrowind, I followed the steps and soon had a very basic understanding of the fundamentals of coding. I made a few text adventures and terminal games. One set in the house I was living in, one set on the spaceship from 2001 A Space Odyssey, and later a fantasy one with an advanced input and interaction system. I had a lot of fun making the games, but got to a point with learning where I found the concepts too abstract. It was scrappily made code, a lot of nested ifs, but it felt like I was getting close to making something someone would actually play. Years passed and I'd since learned about game engines. I tried Unity on my mum's Mac following tutorials. Thank you, Brackies. It was overwhelming, but it seemed like the next step. Everything changed by the time I got a PC. Older, wiser, and with better health, I downloaded Unity, refamiliarized myself with the engine, again thank you, Brackies, and made the infamous Cube tutorial game. Made a concise 2D platformer, and a prototype for an overly ambitious kangaroo game. By this time, I was having more fun conceptualizing games than making them. With that, and with my health being unsteady, I took a break from game development. All the while, my mind was swimming with new ideas for games. I loved the idea of a story-heavy game, something I could write a lot of dialogue for, an RPG dealing with humanity. I also had a cool idea where you play as an atom and can collect electrons and protons to become different elements. I had many ideas, and eventually knew I had to make something. I had to give it another go. There was just one problem. I dreaded going back. My experience using Unity was painful. More than growing pains from having to learn C#, there was just something about the interface that never quite made sense to me. It doesn't interest me or make me excited to make games. The flow was off. If I was going to make games, I needed something a bit different. By this point, it was impossible to ignore the hubbub surrounding Unreal Engine 5. The meme of recreating games on Unreal with RTX and all of that was already getting old, but the message was clear. There's an alternative to Unity, a quality alternative that gets good results and uses C++. Not only that, but it also has a robust visual scripting language built in, which I was excited to try as a visual learner. After setting it up and giving it a good go, I soon fell in love. I made some starter projects and followed a lot of tutorials. Thank you, Ryan Lanley. Because of Unreal's limited support for 2D games, it also forced me to try making 3D games, which I was previously afraid of as it seemed to require a whole new realm of knowledge and expertise. I felt ready for it now, however. I knew how to make a character move and look around, and had some understanding of how to use the visual scripting. It was time to make a game. This is where I made a massive mistake. Despite literally everyone's advice, instead of setting my scope small, I set myself an impossible task. As my first 3D game, and with very little experience actually finishing games, I would make an RPG involving complex system mechanics. To say I was overly ambitious is more than an understatement. I was downright delusional. I'd spent too long imagining ideas, designing games in my imagination instead of on paper. I had no design document, and my goals weren't smart goals. All I had was an idea and a few written words. I feel like it's almost needless to say, but it didn't go well. I implemented feature after feature scrappily, without cohesion. I also worked endlessly on it, which allowed me to avoid being introspective. I was so dead set on this game being my masterpiece that I wasn't seeing reality. I try to think a lot about this time and never fully understand it. Sometimes it's very easy to hear seemingly unanimous advice and go, well, that doesn't apply to me. I've got a dream. I'm different. It's a whole other thing to be able to take it on. Some lessons have to be learnt from first-hand experience, and learn I did. Besides how to use Unreal, I learned a lot about overworking, scoping unrealistically, the importance of designing on paper, and setting deadlines. I learned a lot about what not to do. Now, putting these learnings into practice is another skill in and of itself, one that I've been building over the last couple years. I understand the importance of all these ideas to keep you getting results, but something I've learned about myself. I don't have any desire to make a small experience. Looking back, it's obvious. Depending on the stage of my life, it has been for different reasons. At one point, it would have been for perfection. At another, it might have been for legacy. Yet another could have been for insecurity. These feelings and that of the fact that basically every game I like, indie or otherwise, offers large experiences means that whatever I make has to be grand. So, I want it to be grand, but I need to scope small. I want it to be a dream game, but it needs to be realistic. I want it to be challenging, but it needs to be achievable. I want to work hard on it, but I need to take breaks. Like many things in life, it needs balance. Something that I've often found hard to maintain. After stepping back from this game and game development as a whole, I came up with a new idea. A game where you play as a director who can film and edit movies. In my mind, there aren't enough games that play as creativity engines. Before I started making this, I gave a long thought to how I would make it possible. Thought about what I would need to implement, how long it might take. It seemed doable. This time, I would follow the advice of people with more experience. I would first create a minimum viable product, then based on that, see whether I should go ahead with it. I set about making the prototype. Once I had it made, I could see a lot of problems. It was pretty cool being able to film and edit things. It felt unique and novel, but I had a lot of thoughts. Namely, I could already see that it would be difficult to motivate players to make a movie. There needs to be a reason to film. If I develop it further, the game couldn't remain as a purely sandbox experience. It was going to need story and missions. I also was realizing that in order to have things worth filming, I would need to make a lot of content for it. These two ideas scared me quite a bit. They still do, because they can both throw the scope and amount of work needed out of balance immeasurably. I took another break, gave it a lot of thought, and came to a realization. Being able to think critically and honestly about the problems and weigh up the options was already miles ahead of where I was previously. Even being able to know when I need breaks was a massive step. I thought, perhaps I'm ready. I worked on polishing the features I had and moved towards the idea of making the game more of a role-playing experience. I got it to a point where I had quite a bit to show, but still not much to do. I let family and friends play it and tried my best to take on what was said. One thing I knew though is that if I was going to do this, I needed to get it in a state where there's more to do. A vertical slice with content enough so that I can get a representation of how the finished game will play. Something I can share to get feedback on. I wrote down a massive list of everything I needed for the demo in Trello, broke them down to smaller tasks, removed anything unnecessary, and decided on a hard 6-month deadline. I've since started chipping away at them, and that's where I'm at today. This script has become a history of my development journey, and it is a journey. If there's any takeaways from this video, I hope it's that. No one is born a game maker, no one is born a gamer. No one is born good at anything, really. It takes time, it takes learning, it takes passion, it takes pain, and it takes fear, and pulls out something brave. It takes a lot. To be dramatic, I may not have made it if I hadn't had the distraction, the fun, the connection, the challenge, and the same can be said of making games. Spyro helped me get through my parents' divorce. Skyrim helped me get through bullying in school. GTA Online helped me connect with people when I dropped out. Making games has helped me develop purpose during times of extreme hopelessness. I don't make games for fame and fortune. I don't to be remembered or to get validation. Not anymore. I make games because it's my passion. I make games to give something of myself to a medium that's given so much to me. I make games because if I can give someone a fraction of the meaning that I've experienced, it'll have been worth it. What has your video game journey been like? I'd love to know. Comment your story below, or even better, make a video and share the link in the comments section. I love hearing people's story, and I hope you got something out of mine. Like and subscribe if you did.